Hey everybody, every once in a while the topic pops up of what sample rate we should be using when we do audio production and music production, and there's some pretty good reasons for each of the choices we have available. What I want to look at today though is one of my favorite reasons to use the high sample rates. Before COVID, I was always using 44.1 for all my projects because literally with the lower sample rates that are still professional quality, I felt like nobody could hear the difference. And there have been people who've done tests and it's shown very little difference. Most of the time it's like flipping a coin to see if you can actually tell. Once we moved into an online format teaching, I had to switch to 48K because of Zoom. Zoom in the early days and even now to a certain extent really prefers 48. And so because I never know when I'm going to be teaching, sharing a screen, sharing audio, it just made sense to do 48 for those things. And I was doing 48 a lot of the times when working on post-production projects anyway. So now I have an interface, my SSL12, which goes up to 192 kilohertz sample rate. And I rarely use 192, but there is a time and a place for that. If you're just doing normal recording and you think that doing a high sample rate is going to help sonically, most people won't even be able to hear the difference or have equipment that'll actually be able to really benefit from that. The time it does matter is when you're recording samples and you want to pitch time shift them to the extreme. And so that's one of the places that makes a difference. So I have two different sets of files I've done here. Each of these were recorded with the QuickSampler. And one of them is with a pop socket right here, this thing. And I use that to just do a little pop with my microphone. And I recorded it once at 192 and once at 48K. And then I also did a la sound with my voice, once at 192 and once at 48. And then I just listened back. I did both of these using the flex time option here where it follows tempo. The little pop sound, I had it slowed down or to put to 1/8 speed by default in the QuickSampler, which is a really cool tool. And I tried to pick the pops that originally sounded the most similar, and now you're going to hear the extreme versions of these. So this is the one at 192. Nice kick kind of sound. Here it is at 48. Especially on that low one. Put on headphones if you don't, or make sure you're in a good listening environment. Switch back to 192. Couldn't be bigger difference, right? The 48K sounds digitally artifacted when you really stretch it out like that. The reason for this is that so much of our technology for pitching down and stretching out comes from a sample rate function. And if you're doing that at 192, you have so much more resolution as it stretches out. Now, somebody who's an expert in watching this video, want to put in the comments more mathematically speaking why that's the case, great. I don't want to jump into that right this moment, nor do I think I'm the right person to explain the mathematics behind it, but we have more of the information used when stretching out when we go with the higher sample rates, which is the function that we most often go to when doing some of these stretch functions. Or with flex pitch, where we're keeping the time the same but pitching down, it's a different process, but it's still using some of that information. Now the voice. La, la, Now it's not doing a 4-inch shift. It's making it sound very Mickey Mouse-like. But listen, that was at 192. Listen at 48. La, la. 192. More more similar in some ways than the little percussive sound, but there's still a distinct difference as I go out to the extreme ranges. The 192 sounds better, the 48K sounds a little bit worse. More digital, doesn't sound quite as smooth. And so if you're going to be doing any of these things with sampling where you're going to be stretching things out and changing the original timing and pitch, then the higher sample rates actually make a big difference. The good news is, with Logic, you can spend a period of time when you're recording the original files in 192, and then I just switched my sample rate back to 48, and the QuickSampler still has all the pitch, the same relative pitch. It's still working with the higher resolution files, but I don't have to run my whole session at that. So I'm letting the QuickSampler handle that part of it, and then I'm running my main session at 48K. I was able to switch back and forth as I was doing this because I recorded the 192 and the 48 just by switching the sample rate in the project. The two places to do that are either here, if you customize your transport by going with a right click, and then you can say, let's switch this to custom in the LCD area, and then we're going to do sample rate. You'll see right now I'm at 192. I don't want to crash my system by going to 48 in the middle of a screen recording, but I could do it there. Or you could do it here in your project settings under audio, and it's there as well. Hope this was useful in exploring one of the reasons why we would use high sample rates like 192. Because there are some situations where that makes sense, and it's not just the average music production, but when you want to do some of these specialized functionalities.